Hey everybody, welcome. We have a nice bright sunny day. We're working on a 2007 Toyota Camry with a 2.4 liter in need of a radiator. So I drove over my camera stand, so we'll see how filming goes. The manual has you pull off the bumper. We're gonna see what we can do without that. And if we have to, we will. But just looking at things and where bolts are, we may not have to. So first thing we wanna do is drain the coolant. This air duct here going into the air filter box. Right underneath is the drain. It's a little white, little plug cap you see. Put your catch underneath that, crack it loose, and then it'll start flowing. We can take the radiator cap off just to help it flow a little better. While that's draining, we'll pull this off, 10mm bolts. Mostly what we need is gonna be a 10mm and possibly a 12. Book time on this is about 3 hours. Again, that's assuming that we do have to take the bumper off. Pull this up and out. We have our upper radiator hose to take off, and then these electrical connectors for the cooling fan, and then we'll get the cooling fan up and out. It's a pair of pliers. I like angled pliers like this, work really good. They make special pliers for these hose clamps, or just a regular pair of pliers can work too. Just a little bungee cord. All right, electrical connector. Then we'll take a screwdriver and pop off the connectors holding the harness onto the radiator. Fan, should be 3 of them. And then on top, there's 3 little tabs that you pinch in. I'll show you in a second. And that should pop right up. Now this radiator hose is inside a little holder, so we'll just push that out. There we go. Let's take that hose off. I think that's all my troubles is on this hose. So right here is the thermostat housing in this lower radiator hose. We want to get that off first. I was just hanging up on it trying to get the cooling fan out. Now right here, if you can see that, these just pinch. Hopefully the shadows aren't too bad and you can see, but these just pinch here. So there's 3 of them, 1, 2, and then 1 on the other side here. And that's all that's holding the cooling fan in, and then it just slides out like a cartridge. So that's it. We're gonna go ahead and pop this off. There we go. So now we're gonna pull these upper bolts. There's 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and then 1 here. Then once that's off, we may have to pull these 2 for the hood latch, and I think we may pull this one and this one off for the horns, but we may just be able to unplug the horns and the horns will come out with it. We'll see. So that's what we're working on next, is just pulling this upper support off. So if you have a 10mm ratcheting wrench, that'll really be helpful. And we'll use the ratcheting wrench. Where did I put it? Right here. For these. And then that white one in the middle. Now that one, if you have a ratcheting wrench that only ratchets in one direction, we want to pull the wrench off before we run out of room, and then we can just get it with the open end the rest of the way. It's a short little bolt, so not too big of a deal. So now we'll pull off these 2 for the hood latch. All right, I think the horns, it's hard to get to this one. I can unplug this one pretty easily. There we go. See if we can get to the other one. Oh yeah, easy peasy. Just unplug it. There we go. That's the upper support. Let me bring you around. So now you can see we are free. Now this AC condenser is bolted on here, here, and then 2 down below. And we should have enough, let me see. Oh yeah, we got enough room to grab it. And then on this side, we still have our transmission lines we want to disconnect. So what we can do is get some line clamps to pinch off these hoses so we don't drip a lot of transmission fluid. And then we can just pull those off. Or if you have something to catch it, then you can pull it off from here. But either way, it just comes off down below. No big deal. Just some hoses and some clamps. And then this thing's ready to pop out. We'll leave this on, this lower radiator hose, and we'll transfer it before we put it all in. And this is looking great. So the transmission lines are off. Now we'll pop this. And you can lift up on the radiator just a little to get that bottom bolt more access. All right, I think we are free. Just grab our hoses and pull her out. Now there still will be some coolant in your radiator, so make sure that you dump it out completely into your catch pan. Otherwise you'll get a mess everywhere in your driveway or wherever you have it. One bolt and one other. Oh, there it is. So that's it. Let's get our other radiator out, match it up, make sure it lines up perfectly, and drop it in. A couple different radiator options, so just make sure it matches up and the size is the same. So now you want to pop off our supports, our little rubber, little support grommets. Transfer those over. There should be 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. All right. Now I took my hoses off of the transmission and left them on the radiator, so we'll just slide them over. We want our clamp facing the bottom so that we can get access to it underneath the vehicle. If we ever have to make repairs later, we don't have to pull all this off just to get access to our hoses. And then we got our lower radiator hose we'll swap over to. Now with our radiator hose, we'll put a little silicone paste inside that'll help slide on and then off a little better in the future. This is what I mean by silicone paste. Just a lubricant. Throw this on the bottom. There we go. And again, we'll make sure our hose clamp in faces the bottom so that we can get to it from underneath the vehicle. I believe that's it. We are ready to slap this thing back in. Make sure our grommets, I think I'm gonna put the lower grommets in the hole on the car first. There, that'll slide in. Then we don't have to worry about them falling off. And then we'll put this in the holes. There we go. Perfect. Now we can bolt our AC condenser up. I do the top first, and I think the bottom will just kind of line in place. Just tack the top in. It's getting hot. I'm going to take my jacket off. I think I'm going to change my mind. Actually, pull this back out. Do the bottom first. It doesn't quite line up, and that could be a manufacturing thing. So line the bottom up first. I can't get my bolt back. There we go. Because you can see from the front grill down below, you can see how it's supposed to line up. Probably making it look harder than it really is. There, perfect. Yeah, so you just have to tilt the radiator forward just a little and lift up on it, but putting those bottom in first, I think is better because it's just ever so slightly off, and I think we can manipulate the top easier because it's just better access up top. So let's tighten these down. Just snug, they don't have to be crazy tight. sure we're still in our grommet supports. Good. And now let's do the top. Let me show you how just barely off we are. You can see how we're off just ever so slightly. So we need to go over in that direction a little more. On both of these, you can see here how off we are. So that's how off we are on the bottom. But it's easier to manipulate the top here than it is the bottom because you have to bend all the way down and try to find the hole down below. But easier to see and easier to move up top. So not too hard. It'll move in that direction. Then we'll put those bolts in and then we're ready to put the support on. So I am going to loosen the bolts just a little. So they're still in a few threads. Let's see if we got enough room to move. There, yeah, oh yeah. We'll put our top on, tighten our top down. Good and snug. Now we'll go down and do our bottoms. Plug in our transmission lines. Pull our locks off. Now typically we don't have to top off our transmission because we don't really lose much at all. But if you want, it wouldn't be a bad idea just to double check fluid level. All right, let's put our top support on. Don't want to forget plugging in our horns. There we go. And this side was the easier side anyway. All right. And then it kind of goes in at an angle. When you took it off, you'll see that there's a little holder piece on the front. So just kind of tilt it and it slides in. We want our radiator to fall in those open holes. Yep, perfect. All right. That's it. So we'll put our center bolt in first. I think that'll be easiest. We can kind of push our hood latch back a little. There we go. We won't tighten that all the way, just close, and then we'll get our side pieces in. All right, now we'll go back and tighten the middle one down. All right, just good and snug. They're not big bolts, so you don't have to be hammered down, but now we got these for our hood latch. I dropped it. Where did it go? Having a good magnet helps in a lot of situations. There we go. All right, cooling fans. Just make sure we tighten that. Yep. We'll put that hose in its little holder. All right, we'll just snap it into place up top. Make sure down below. So there are slots on the bottom of the fan that need to go in their little spot. All right, we are good. Now we'll plug this back in. Plug this one back in. Pop in our little harness connectors or holders. Let me just look around. Make sure our radiator drain is closed before we fill it up with anything. I think that's it. Then we can put our hoses back on. I'll put this on after. We want to fill it up and just check for any leaks. Plug in our overflow. Having a funnel like this is helpful. Not 100% necessary, but it is helpful. You don't want to get coolant on your serpentine belt. It'll start squeaking. You want to use Toyota Red. If we were just topping off, I would say Universal's okay for topping off, but there's going to be a lot of coolant going in here. If it's a gallon or more, then I'd go with the OEM or what's specific for this vehicle. This is just to prevent the splash from getting on the belt. All right, looks like mostly full. Just over a gallon. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, we'll clean up. I want to start it up and let it flow through the system. And again, we'll just keep checking for leaks. Wipe up some of our stuff. The transmission lines. Just let it warm up, let it burp. Just squeeze on the hose a few times. So where the transmission line, the metal line, bolts into the radiator, it's leaking. I'm gonna see if I can get a wrench on it, tighten it up. Hopefully that's all it needs. So 19 millimeter did the trick. They were both loose. This one was leaking. The one kind of in the middle was leaking. The other one wasn't. That's not typical that you have to check those for tight, but maybe to add that to the list before you put the radiator in, just make sure those transmission lines, it's the metal line that bolts into the radiator, they weren't tight, which is uncommon, but you've seen it here. So if it happened to me, it could happen to you. Just double check them before you put the radiator in. All right, I'm gonna start it back up, make sure we're not leaking. Hopefully that fixed it and we won't have to pull this radiator back out and swap it for a warranty. All right, that looks like that's all it was. I don't see it leaking anymore. So we're good. It's warmed up and it looks like we're good to go. Put this guy back on. All right, that is it. On this 2007, the bumper did not need to come off. I don't know about all the years that this may apply to, but if you look at the top and you have access to all the bolts holding that upper support on, if you have access to those bolts, the bumper does not need to come off. So that saves a lot of time. This is a 3-hour book time. It took just over an hour to get everything done, in and out. And we didn't even have to jack up the vehicle. So score there. Other than that, top it off, you're just looking for leaks. It was kind of a rare instance to have the transmission cooler line leaking where it goes into the radiator. Not too common, but apparently it does happen. So maybe just making sure those are snug down tight before putting the radiator in would be a good thing for me to continue or start doing from now on. Other than that, pretty simple. Just follow your local laws on recycling coolant and all that kind of stuff. And thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. See you on the next one.